Hi, and welcome to Filmi Ladies. We are starting a new series today. It's sort of a series that's inspired by color. And so in the episodes, we'll be picking one color, and then we'll talk about a movie that reminds us of that color, maybe actors or cast and crew or songs or outfits, wherever the conversation takes us. So we're starting the series by talking about the color black. It's still January. It gets dark really early. If you go to work, it's dark when you go to work. It's dark when you come home. We're both wearing black today. I'm channeling Sanjay Dutt energy with my black tank top. And so I got this book from the library. It's really cool. It's called The Secret Lives of Color, and it's by Cassia St. Clair. And she has like all these different sort of like a look at the history and culture and what famous artists have said about different colors. So she has a lot of very interesting things to say about black, and we'll get to that. But first, Beth, I wanted to ask you two questions. Number one, what are some keywords that you associate with the color black? And also, the movie that you did pick for today, why did you pick that for the color black?
Okay, so these two things will be related. Black, maybe more than any other color, contains multitudes for me. Uh, it is cool, as in like stylish. It is possibly elegant and elevated and formal,
Mhm.
but it can also be very cool in the more James Dean, Elvis, Beatles kind of way, right? Like, and it can be goth, but it can also be very refined. It can be depressed. It
Mhm.
can be sad. It can be dark, as in emotionally dark or angry or scary or dangerous. Like you talk about a blackout. We were talking about black ice when we talked about snow.
Mm.
So I feel like black is a lot. I mean, it's almost as many things as snow is.
Yeah.
And the thing that's kind of missing from black for me, I think, is joy or something
Mm.
kind of like that. And I don't think black always connotes depression or sadness or anger or anything like that, but I do not find it to connote um up
Yeah.
upliftment. Is that a word? Or sort of joy and happiness and that kind of.
Vivacity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Although it's also very functional, right? Black can be
Hmm.
very, very um useful. It does not tend to, and it can also, we might border into gray a little bit here, but there's also like this sort of shadowy element of black. Um, and so the movie I picked, I came to mind because of a very specific image. I have picked Satyajit Ray's 1966 Nayak, which is,
Yay.
as I was watching it, I was like, is this my favorite Ray movie? Or is Charlotta my favorite Ray movie? Or is Donna Armani my favorite Ray movie? Those three kind of battle it out. Last time I said what my favorite Ray movies are, it may have been a different list, but today that's how I feel. This to me is a masterpiece. We'll get to that. But I chose it because there are a few scenes where Uttam Kumar, playing the titular hero, puts on his sunglasses. And
Mm.
it's the black and white film, so there are a lot of things that appear basically black, but they are black, black, black.
Hmm.
And they are his armor. They are his, thing that prevents other people from seeing as much of him. They obviously alter how he sees the world. And it's like they only let in as much as he can kind of handle. And this character is under a great deal of stress, which we can get to. And I don't know if any of our listeners have not seen this movie. I think it's quite possible since it's Bengali. Please see this movie. It's
It's
amazing.
amazing.
Um, but yeah, I just was picturing him with his sunglasses when I was thinking about black for a little bit. And he wears like a dark suit a lot, so maybe that's black. And he has very spiffy, high contrast white and black shoes on. They're like
Mm.
spectators almost. They're very they seem old-fashioned to me for 1966, although I don't know what was in vogue among movie
Hmm.
Calcutta in 1966. I've never seen 60s Calcutta films with these shoes in them, we'll put it that way.
Mm.
But anyway, so it's cool. It's a little bit unapproachable, right? It has a
Yeah.
standoff-ishness to it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's an avoid yar. It's a
Yeah,
sartorial avoid yar.
and it does in his case indicate mental disturbance, depression, sadness, confusion, turmoil, upset, things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I also wanted to touch about the thing you said about cool, because when we think about stars that we think are cool or fashions that we think of cool, and especially when you said James Dean, you think of like black leather jackets, you
Yeah,
think of that black motorbike, you
yeah,
think of the sunnies, the black sunnies.
yeah.
So much of that is cool. James Dean would not be as cool on screen as he is if you took those accoutrements away from him,
He would,
right?
he would not.
He just wouldn't. So to some extent, black is definitely associated with that.
Yeah.
But cool is also a way of sort of othering other people,
Oh yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
because if everybody was cool, then that wouldn't make any sense.
yeah,
To
yeah.
be cool, you have to be a little bit better than everyone else, or at least think you're better than everyone else. So there is that othering quality, I think,
Mhm.
that black has.
Totally.
Black does not seem as communal to me. It seems more kind of like I'm here and you are there.
Well,
Um,
unapproachable.
a little unapproachable. And then I was thinking about the point you also made about how you don't associate black with joy.
Mm-mm.
Which is true. I mean, black has traditionally been the color of mourning. Black is the color of the night. Black is also associated with death.
Mm.
Black is associated with depression. One of my favorite metaphors for depression is actually the black dog.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill referred to it as that. And there's especially a scene in Bimal Roy's Devdas in which that image was so sad to me, where Dilip Kumar is sitting on the banks of the river and his back is towards us and his whole body language is just kind of like he's in his shell. And
Mm.
it just broke my heart. And that was the only second in that movie where I was kind of like, I don't support any of this, but for this one moment I want to give you a big hug and then take you away to Alcoholics Anonymous. But that sense of just kind of like depression and not being part of it, the only exception I can think of where black can indicate some amount of joy is when you have black tie events,
Right. Formal.
right? Like,
Mhm.
right, formal black tie events. It's everyone going to the Metropolitan Opera, or it's Feroz Khan wearing his black suit, drinking a martini, and
Yeah.
Mumtaz is wearing like a slinky black dress and
Yeah.
heels. That is the only time I associate black with joy. Otherwise, it's definitely none of those things.
I think black also, with the rise of athleisure clothing, right? Black is can be very sporty also.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there are a lot of song sequences where we see people either in black athletic clothes, like there must be some in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, right? Where they're playing basketball and someone's wearing black sneakers or black track pants or whatever.
I
So
feel like Kuch Kuch Hota is just neon all the
it
time.
is
It's just
time
Tommy
frame,
Hilfiger.
but black can also be kind of a unifying, a uniform thing. So when you see like a
Mm,
fleet of backup dancers in black, I'm not necessarily getting depression off them. I'm just getting
right.
matching, which,
Yes.
and as someone who has spent a lot of time in sort of Western classical performing music, black, most
Mm-hmm.
bands, orchestras, choirs, black and white maybe, but definitely black is like the thing that just kind of makes everybody look the same. And faces, the mostly Caucasian faces, stand out
Mm-hmm.
against black. So it's to sort of highlight the performer and get away from, hide any discrepancies in what, what
Yeah.
they're wearing and that kind of thing. So black is yeah, it carries, it does a lot. And I want to be clear, I don't necessarily think that someone wearing black is in a bad mood or is standoffish or
Right.
anything like that. But if you wish to connote that, black works very well.
Yeah. I think also, and this is just from like a fashion standpoint, I think that in some ways the rise of black in fashion also is associated with the fact that there was this whole movement where people would talk about how black is slimming. You still
Right.
hear that. You hear people still talk about how, well, I wear black because it makes me look skinnier, or I wear vertical stripes rather than horizontal stripes because it makes me look skinnier. So again, there's that concept of that armor where
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, no, I'm going to wear this color that's going to make me look tinier or smaller or skinnier or whatever. So there's a lot of like protection. Like almost like an amulet that I associate with black, but black is also scary. My movie choice, of course, being a horror aficionado, is a movie that has a lot of black in it, and the movie is Bramayugam.
Mhm.
So shout out to Khandan, because when I was on their episode, they started talking about Bramayugam, which is a Malayalam movie. I believe it's from 2024, and it has Mammootty in it. And I've only ever seen one Malayalam movie, which is Mani Chitratal. That's it. And Beth, Amrita started talking about it, and she was like, "Pitu, this movie is right up your alley. It's a horror movie. It's this man who's running away, and he finds a mansion. Of course, it's a haunted mansion."
It totally.
And like, why wouldn't it be? And it's just this, it's that's the movie, like it's just about that. And I was like, yes, you are right, you know me so well, of course I will watch it. And I did enjoy it very much. And so Brahma Yugam, so yuga of course is like era, like you have Kali Yuga, and then Brahm refers to the Sanskrit word Brahm, which is illusion. So it's almost like saying like the age of illusion or the age of lies, which also that title like just drew me in. And what is interesting is that even though this is a 2024 movie, the director, I believe his name is Sadasivan, he intentionally chose to film it in black and white. That was an intentional choice. And I read his interview in which he said that, yes, the movie could have worked in color as well. I mean, there's plenty of horror films that are made in color, right? Like it doesn't have to be black and white, but he just felt like the black and white would really add to it. And I agree with him. I think it makes it that much more atmospheric. It's also a period drama. It's set
Mhm.
in the 16th century.
Mhm.
It's very claustrophobic. There's basically like three main characters. There's Mammootty and these two other actors, that's it, in this mansion in the middle of nowhere. And there's a few like, let's say, entities, for because I don't want to give stuff away, but there's some entities as well. Um, so it's almost like a chamber piece. It's very contained. It's very claustrophobic, and the black and white really adds to the sense of dread and to the sense of fear, because this movie, the main characters just permeated with fear from beginning to end, because he's essentially trapped. Um, and so I think it really also sort of channels, I think, from primitive times, man has been scared of the dark, right? Like there wasn't electricity, fire was the only thing that could help you see your way. I mean, how are you going to protect yourself against like predators and stuff? Sometimes on a moonless night, it was literally a matter of survival to be able to, make your way to safety. And so in Bramayugam as well, first of all, it's Kerala. So it's very forested, it's very lush, but that same lushness is also like a trap, because you're in this forest and there's clearly entities abroad. And how are you going to escape from them, by the way? So it's very intentional, the choice. I love the light and shadows in it, like when they're pottering around the house. Everything is very high contrast
Yeah.
when it's black and white, which I also love, because it's very black and white, I feel, are like very primal, primitive. It's like, when you say someone is a black and white thinker, there is no room for nuance. But you know what? When you're stuck in a haunted mansion and there is evil around you, there is no room for nuance. It's just survival and just trying to get out of there alive. So I really loved kind of the primitive aspect of it. And I think that is why you'll see a lot of black and horror films, right? Like it would be interesting if someone made a horror movie and it was all like bubblegum pink. I think that would be such a cool artistic choice, actually. And I wonder if there is such a film in existence.
There must
Um,
there must be.
there has to be. I would love Sofia Coppola to do something like that. I feel like she could really do a good one. Um, so tell us a little bit about Nayak. I've seen it. I love it. But for people who haven't seen it and who are resistant to watching Ray, or who are resistant to black and white, tell them why they must see it.
This is my favorite Indian film about Indian film culture. It's not about filmmaking. It's about film
Hmm.
celebrity, and maybe celebrity more generally, and many other things. But if you want to see films about films, this is an absolutely cannot miss. Uh, so the bait, I just if you are on Blue Sky, go look at what I posted that was the Roku summary of this film, because it was one of those things that like technically it's true, but it misses the mark in every regard.
What did it
I
say?
summarize the movie. Let me pull it up really. Where's my so I will talk and look at the same time. So this is the story of who we're led to believe is Bengal's greatest film star, what's his name? Arindam Mukherjee. Uh, who of course is significantly similar to Uttam Kumar. No one else could have played this. It wouldn't have been,
Mm.
Ray has said, I wrote this with him in mind. I wouldn't have done it if he wouldn't do it. As much as I love Sumitra Chatterjee, like this is not his role. This is an Uttam Kumar role. It's absolutely fantastic. And so this actor has been invited to Delhi to receive an award of some kind. And so he gets the notice last minute, so he can't get on a plane. So he has to take a train
Mhm.
to Delhi from Calcutta. And it's also too late for him to get a car to himself, or a container compartment to himself. So he's in a compartment with a family. And of course they're like,
Yeah.
because if you don't know about Uttam Kumar, you imagine Shah Rukh Khan, but
Right.
maybe even more so.
Mm.
Like there's a statue of this man outside the subway station in the filmmaking neighborhood in Calcutta, for example, and it's like bigger than life size. So like this is like some kind of mix of Shah Rukh and Raj Kapoor or something.
Like
Like
he's the Badshah.
he's the Badshah that like people are still compared to him all the time. Like
Mm.
you can't talk about Bengali cinema without this man. So he gets on the train, and then it's about the different people he encounters and the conversations he has with them, and also some of the conversations they all have with another, because there are, I don't know, like 10 or so other characters in this movie. The main other character is Sharmila Tagore playing a journalist. Now, at one point, the subtitles say she has said she's not a journalist, she's an editor, but she writes for and runs a women's magazine, like Modern Woman magazine. So I think I would call her a journalist.
Yeah.
I assume she's trying to indicate I'm not a muckraker. I am not a sensational journalist or a tabloid journalist. But so they talk here and there. And at first, she's being egged on by people she's sitting next to on the train to go get an interview because that will really make her magazine. And she kind of goes that way, but their first encounter is like not their encounter over that does not go super well. And it's very clear that he's actually the one in charge, even though she's asking the questions in a way. But then there are all these different interactions, and he kind of slips in and out of dreams and of reminiscence. I think some of them he's actually asleep, some of them he's not. And you kind of see what are some of the important points in his life, some that have to do with stardom, but all have to do with making him who he is. So you see him interacting with the kind of theater director he was tight with right before he became a movie actor. And that person had said, don't you dare do movies. Here's why movies are terrible, and theater is where it's at. Very Bengali thing to put in a movie, but
Hmm.
I feel like this conversation happens in Bengali films all the time. Um, and then that person dies suddenly, and he's really left adrift. We see a relationship he had with a former classmate who is a labor rights activist, and then there he kind of re-enters the star's life and asks him to go with him to a protest, and the star is very nervous about being around that many people in a sort of fraught situation,
Heightened.
and he knows he let his friend down, and his friend thinks less of him now. There's a scene where there are scenes with his first movie role where he is with an elder actor that he really, I think, respects. I think that's right to say, and how that goes. And then later, still a flashback, but later you see that elder actor come to him in his posh new flat and everything. He's on morphine and is an alcoholic and is begging
Mhm.
for work. So you see this, like, because the theater director had told him, you have a couple hits, but then someone can knock you right off and they're the next big
Right.
star. And you see that with this elder actor who could have been a mentor to him, but was not nice and like was badly
Mhm.
behaved. You see a young woman who is on the train, but you see a flashback where she went to his house also begging, not begging, asking for work. And you see her kind of manipulating him. Um, with her emotions and her portrayal of emotions. And then there are other interactions with Sharmila, the journalist, and then the train eventually arrives in Delhi. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say they go their separate ways, and we imagine,
Yeah.
of course, that they will never see each other again. Um, and it's just the train, you've got all these people contained, and there's
Mm.
but they're contained at the same time, which is really fascinating. And like he would not have had any of these interactions on a plane,
Right.
or if he'd had his own compartment in the train. And his manager, I think his manager is on the train too, but they're not together. They're not traveling
Mm.
together. Maybe his manager's not on the train. I don't know. Uh, so like there's a grumpy old man who writes letters to the editor about how much he hates cinema. They interact a little bit. The family he's with, there's a little girl, she's like 10 or so. She's sick, and so she's on the upper berth, just lying still most of the time and kind of looking at him. And he comes and like checks her
Aw.
head for fever. And her mother interacts with him a little bit, and her mother ends up being kind of motherly towards him because he's drinking a lot and he's taking sleeping pills. This is someone who does not rest.
Right.
Um, there's interactions among other characters. Like one is an advertising salesman, and of course Ray was in advertising, so like
Mhm.
and he's trying to get the dad of that little family to take his company on for advertising services. Like, yeah, it's really, really interesting. As with Ray, always, right, there's this deep humaneness to this film, seeing these people for who they are in many different ways, some good, some bad, some other,
Mhm.
watching the different versions of themselves that they are when they interact with different people. And I do think it's an amazing um, depiction of celebrity. They pull up at a station, and the star and the journalist are at a table together, and there's a mad crowd outside like banging on the window to get his attention. He's cool as a cucumber, and she's freaking out, like hiding her face. She can't handle it. And again, he's in power in that
Right.
situation, and he's like, if you cover your face, they'll look even more, right? They're going to wonder
Mhm.
who you are, and they'll assume you're my heroine. um there's a particular scene I want to point out for blackness in this film that is not one that stands out to me usually, but it did this time. I think he's dreaming at this point. We in the beginning of the film, we find out that he has been written about in the morning newspaper for punching somebody at a club the day before. Speaking of Shah Rukh Khan, right?
Right.
What did Suresh Kundera in 1966 Calcutta do? Um, and he says before he's left his house in the morning, a producer has come to try to sign him. And he's explaining to the producer, like, there was a man shooting off his mouth and it went too far, especially in the presence of a lady. And I am one role I'm born for is to be the subtitles say pugilist. I don't know the word of Bengali, but he says he's clocked a guy. And in the dream, you see him he's walking in front of a hoarding of his own movie, but it's black everywhere around him, except for a few pieces of set design. And he's wandering around, kind of following sounds. There's a church chime. He goes through a door. He enters this club. Everyone in the club is
Mm.
wearing masquerade masks, but and he ends up interacting with a man there and punching him because of what the man said the star has done with his wife and like all this. So there's a lot of blackness comes there to stand, I think, for uncertainty. And like you were saying, the lack of safety. Like black can protect you,
Mhm.
but black can also incredibly disorient you and cause you
Mhm.
to misstep or step into something dangerous or be trapped or completely unaware of how to proceed. um
Mhm.
and I mean, obviously in a black and white film, black is going to do maybe more than it does in other contexts, but I do think even if this film were in color, there'd still be a lot of black in it, I think.
Right. Yeah. I so I've seen quite a few movies that are about film stars. At least there's a subplot about a film star, or if not a film star, at least like a really wealthy person or like an industrialist or whatever. This is probably one of the few films, apart from maybe Luck by Chance, where I have some amount of sympathy.
Oh yeah.
Or yeah,
Oh,
where
a
Ray
lot of
does
sympathy for the.
such he does such a good job of humanizing the
Mhm.
celeb, because half the time when a celebrity of any stripe says things in an interview, they're like, oh, poor me, I can't walk the streets of Mumbai and eat chaat, and I'm like, oh, your life must suck. Usually I don't have any sympathy whatsoever, because I'm just like, ugh, cry me a river. But this is one of the films where I'm like, I can understand how being a celebrity is like, and being a gigantic film star is amazing in so many ways. You're in a position that few can even dream of. But at the same time, you have essentially now locked yourself into a golden cage.
Yeah.
No one is ever going to look at you without thinking they want something from you. It
Yeah.
could be
And you
material
see
things.
that, right? In the film.
Yeah. You're always going to ask yourself, what is your agenda? You're
And
being nice to me. Why?
he never complains in the
Right.
film, right? Other people say to him, it must be hard. Like the mom in the train car says, I think I saw you in Newmarket a while ago buying a shirt. And she says
Mm,
something like, you must not be able to go on the streets at all. Or, various people say things like that to him, but he never complains.
right.
And he does say many times, like, I want to be sure, please don't leave without let me offer you a cold drink before you leave. I don't want anyone to think I have bad manners. He refers repeatedly to like being civilized or having good manners.
Hmm.
He says Bhadralok at one point, of course.
Right.
And yeah, so he's very image conscious and never complains.
Right. Yeah, which is also
Very
I
difficult, but he never complains.
I think a signification of his power as well, and that's so interesting because the Shah Rukh Khan comparison. I did watch an interview a long time ago. I think it was Farida Jalal was interviewing Shah Rukh, and this is when Shah Rukh's star was on the rise. He had done DDLJ, he had done Dar, so he was like a legit star at that point, right? But he had not become the Shah Rukh yet, but he was on his way. And Farida Jalal said to him, "Do you feel bad sometimes that you're a star now and you can't do all of these things?" And he said, "No, I absolutely love it. I wanted to be a star. This was my dream. I have no problem whatsoever not being able to walk down the street and mingle and eat all the things. I'm fine where I am, thank you."
Good for
Which
it.
is such a Shah Rukh Khan thing to
Yeah.
say, right? But I do like, I think my main fascination for Nayak is the fact that this is one of the few films where I feel like I have some amount of sympathy, some amount of empathy for a person who is in an extremely privileged position, where I can understand that to some extent that level of celebrity can be a trap. Um, Otherwise, I just don't care.
Train is a bit of a leveler, isn't it? Because
Yes.
I don't think we see anyone who's supposed to be poor on the train, but we do see different classes and types of
Mhm.
people on the train all together.
Yeah, I mean, if he was flying and he was like in first class or something, or if you look at the way that movie stars are like whisked away through like immigration, all the things, you don't encounter them. Salman Khan was on my flight one time and I had absolutely no idea because he boarded it last, right before the
Uh,
doors were about to close. And he was put in first class, obviously, which I was not in first class. And he was also the first to disembark as well. It was way later when I was standing in customs is when I heard like the chitter chatter, where people were like, Salman Khan was on our flight. And I was like, wait, what? It was a London Mumbai flight. And I had no idea whatsoever. So they're very cocooned.
yeah.
And when you actually have to be in a train with the plebs, or you have to be in a movie theater with the plebs, because sometimes these stars like to go to a movie theater to see how their movie's doing, and they'll
Yeah.
sit in like the back row or whatever. There's so few opportunities that they get where they can actually try to mingle, but even then it's not really the real thing because you can never shed your identity and your image, right? Yeah.
There's one other little scene in this I want to call out that actually doesn't have to do with black, but it's on the film about film topic. There's
Mm,
a scene where he's talking with in a flashback with the person who becomes his manager, who is also in the theater group that he's a part
mm.
of. And he's telling him about what happened his first after he was shooting his very first film. And he talks about, I didn't do very well, and I know I didn't do very well, and he's distraught over that. And I think that um, establishing this character as someone who does have artistic mm, ambitions or cares or concerns or whatever, I think does help with that helps with the humanizing a little bit too.
Yeah.
I don't hear him say a ton about it later, but he does talk to Sharmila about when I went to see my first film, I walked out, I could only bear half an hour of it. So he is someone who cares about doing a good job
Yeah.
anyway. And I think that is something that so again, having just watched Luck by Chance again recently, like you can see Farhan Akhtar's character doesn't really care about that
Yeah.
anymore. As he goes along, um, he's abandoned that, and the Nayak has not. Mhm.
Yeah. Also in Luck by Chance, remember one of my favorite scenes is when Farhan meets Shah Rukh Khan at a party and they're sitting together and Farhan is clearly being a jerk to his friends,
Yeah,
and Shah Rukh notices it and picks up on it and makes that pointed comment about, you really shouldn't just be abandoning your friends just because you are on the rise. And it's such a jab.
right.
And it's a jab only Shah Rukh could have made. And I love that moment. Oh, Farhan Akhtar's character in Luck by Chance is so frustrating, Beth.
I know. I
I
know.
mean, he's played it incredibly well.
Great film, but yeah, he's so irritating.
I'm just like, oh, yeah, I know. I don't find the Nayak irritating at all. Like, I think he's lovely. He has all of these. Like, do I want to be friends with him? I don't know. But
You can't. Right.
right.
No, there's no he's not gonna
Yeah.
he barely ever lets anybody in, I think, is part of what's going on here. And Sharmila, probably partly because she seems not to care too much, or
Yeah.
does not care about celebrity, but is more interested in him as an individual. She succeeds somewhat, but
Yeah.
very clearly needed to talk to somebody, uh,
Right.
and she was there.
I also love the way she's styled in this movie, by
Oh,
the way.
I know.
I love her big, gigantic glasses, and her hair is very
And
different.
her glasses are also armor. Like they're obviously just like
Yeah.
writing glasses, but they're big, chunky, black framed, like mid-60s glasses.
Yes.
And he tells her there's a scene where she has them off, and he's like, "Oh, you're pretty without your glasses." Classic man line.
Yeah.
And then she puts them back on again.
Right.
She does not want any connotation of like flirting with him or
Or
any,
like impropriety.
right, no impropriety. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So interesting.
I want to hear about your movie, and I'm going to turn my camera off for a second because I must go refill my tea. I must. So
Okay.
please tell us about your movie while I run off to refill my tea. I'll be.
So so Bramayugam was definitely it got a lot of accolades. A lot of people really love it. I think it people just said really good things about it. And then of course Mammootty is in it, and he's like this big gigantic superstar, right? Like he's probably like Kerala Shahrukh or something. Um, I watched it and I enjoyed it because I just always enjoy horror. To me, it had some positives. On the whole, I wouldn't say I was blown away by this movie. I think it's a little bit hyped, and I've seen so much horror that at this point it just wasn't like some great mind-bending movie to me. My gold standard for horror is still going to be Tumbad. And I thought that Bramayugam had like some amount of derivativeness to it. Like there's literally a part in Bramayugam where there's like a ring, and he's making these comments about the ring, and I was like, wait, are we Gollum now? Are we Smeagol from Lord of the Rings? Are we gonna like, one ring to bind them? There's other aspects in it that seem a little bit derived from Tumbar. There's underground chambers. Now, to some extent, all horror films, at least horror films that are based on myths and mythology, are going to have certain tropes that they're going to recycle through. So that's unavoidable. But a lot of it seemed a little bit derivative to me. However, on the whole, I did enjoy it. I would say that if someone is looking for a horror movie that is just absolutely top notch, this is not it. I thought it would be it, but it was not that great. I would say where Tumbar is more like in the league of Pan's Labyrinth. I think Brahmayugam is like a good effort, but it's not even as good as Kantara, which is a Kannada horror slash mythology slash folklore movie that I saw. Like even Kantara is better than this one, but I thought it was very interesting. I thought Mammootty's acting was amazing. I think the black and white also helped because like Mammootty is constantly chewing pan in this movie, but not the pan that has like gulkand in it. So it's not like necessarily red, but there is sapari in it. And he has this absolutely horrible smile and like very menacing kind of like laughter in the movie. And so every time he grins, it's like you can see the pan bits, the sapari bits in his teeth, and it's just
Ew.
so, yeah, but it's so creepy but gross, but also really adds to the menace factor. I mean, I haven't seen much stuff with Mammootty in it, and I get it. I understand why this guy is held up because I think he was the best thing about Brahmayugam. He was so creepy and horrible. And I found his acting was very nuanced instead of being loud. It would be so easy to just like play this role in like a very Mr. Burns kind of way, but he didn't. He was just kind of like nasty and menacing. And at its core, I think Brahmayugam is basically about it's about power struggles, and it's about kind of like how the oppressors become the oppressed and the oppressed become the oppressors. It really takes a lot from like mythology, like there's a yakshi in it. It's a lot about humans and deities, many of whom are probably malevolent, um, trying to sort of live in the same universe and colliding with each other because unfortunately at least some of those entities do not want to coexist. And so it's kind of like who's going to have the upper hand. The main character in it, his the actor's name is, was it, people keep referring to him as AA on Arjun Ashokan is the guy. He is basically a folk singer. So he's the one who gets trapped. And this is not a spoiler, but he basically has run away from a slave market. And so he's run away from a slave market. And while he's basically escaping, running for his life, is when he finds this haunted mansion. And Mammootty is the guy who basically owns the mansion. And so it's this place that he thinks is going to be his sanctuary and refuge. It just kind of turns that idea around, where this place that you thought you're safe, you were probably better off in the slave market, sorry to say. So that's very interesting. And then there's like a twist towards the end, which also shows history sort of repeating itself. So there's a lot about like power struggles, about people having even a modicum of power, then immediately using it to beat down on the other people, very kind of like dog eat dog. And just the atmosphere of like terror, the eeriness is really good. There's another character in it. So apart from Mammootty and apart from Arjun Ashokan, there's a guy called Siddharth Bharatan. He plays the cook. He's the only other character in this movie. His acting I thought was amazing.
Mm.
He was really good too. And he really keeps you guessing, like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he going to help the folk singer? Is he what is his agenda? I think the black of it really kind of like Tambad points to man's worst sort of proclivities and greed and the desire for power, the desire for control. Like, here's this guy, he just wants to live his life. He just
Yeah.
wants to be a folk singer. He has a beautiful voice and he just wants to sing. And there's all these people who don't want him to be able to do that. So it's very sad. But I think that's the blackness in this movie, I think, comes from like the blackness of the human heart, but also the blackness from these entities that don't really want you to be able to do anything. It's also one of the few movies like Tambad that I've seen where it's kind of a question mark about whether it's the entity that's evil or if it's the human that's actually evil. So
Yeah.
I like that too, when it's
Gotcha.
when it's not that that clear, when it's not that black and white.
I have three questions for you. One, do you think that having a grounding in Hinduism is necessary for understanding this film?
No, I don't think so. I think having a grounding in Hinduism would be a little bit more important to understand Kantara,
Sure.
but not this one.
Okay. Two, what do you think? Is it possible to answer without spoilers what the illusion is that's referred to by the title?
I think the illusion has to do with the concept of safety. Like, I saw a bumper sticker a long time ago that stuck with me because I loved it so much, especially because I'm a giant like X-Files fan. And it said, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you.
Right.
And I think it's kind of like that, right? Like, what is safety?
Yeah.
Oh, you escape, you were, a singer and life was great, so you were safe. Okay, but like now regimes have changed and now there's a slave market, so now you're longer safe. Oh, good, you ran away from the slave market, and look, you found a house. That isn't that wonderful? Maybe those people will take you in. Oh, oops, that's not happening either. Oh, look, there's this person that might help you. Well, are they going to help you though? So just this constant like being unsure, and just the games, like the mind games, and
Yeah.
just this constant terror of not knowing if you're safe or not.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
then my third question is, does this make you want to see any more either Mammootty or Malayalam films?
I don't know if it makes me want to see more Malayalam films, but it makes me want to see more Mammootty films because I don't know much about Malayalam films or about their stars or whatever. But when I was on Reddit and I was reading about it, people were talking about how this movie would not have worked as well as it did if it weren't for Mammootty. And this movie actually became a really big hit. And they do credit Mammootty with being able to bring those people to the theaters, right? He just had such an amazing presence, I thought. And in comparison, I thought the guy AA, Arvind Shokan, I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was that great. The other guy, Bharatan, was better. So I think I would probably want to see more of Mammootty. I, for some reason, think about Mammootty the way I think about Mohanlal.
Oh,
Where,
same. Yeah,
Yeah, where like I know they're different and I know they work primarily in different like regional industries, but it's kind of like I am very interested in knowing more about Mammootty. But I'm not particularly that interested in checking out more Malayalam cinema. Yeah, my husband watches a lot of Malayalam movies, like, and I'm just not as into some of the ones that I've heard of that he really liked, for instance, just seem very like triggering to me. Like there's a movie called Virus, Beth. I've heard it's amazing.
I've heard that too. No,
It literally starts with a person like trying to rescue an injured bat, and then it's about this horrible pandemic that happens. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to relive those years. Thank you very much. I'm sure it's a
no.
great film, but that's a no from me. And then a friend of mine was telling me about this movie called, I think it's called The Great Indian Kitchen or
Mm.
something like that. But or the Great Indian Marriage. It's again, it's a Malayalam movie, and again, it sounds very interesting, but it also does not sound like something I want to spend my time watching. So yeah, I will watch more Mammootty films though. Why are you asking? Are you interested in checking out this film?
No, I think it's probably too scary for me. Although Haunted Haveli is going to be the direction I should go if I'm going to do a horror film. Like I was thinking about, it
Yes.
sounds a little bit like a sort of topsy-turvy version of Laken or
Mm,
Patan, right? So um,
yeah.
we are not strangers to Haunted Havelis here on
Right.
Tell Me Lady.
Because the only reason I was asking is because I feel like if you wanted to watch Bramayugam, I think you could totally do it. There's a lot more, I'd say it's more eerie and
Hmm,
spooky. There really aren't a lot of jump scares in it.
yeah.
And it's just more eerie and more spooky. I would never in a million years recommend you watch Thumbad because I'm a horror movie fan and it is too scary even for me.
I've seen Tumbad and I did have to watch it like this, and I will never see it again. It's too bad.
You shouldn't. No, but Brahma Yogam is actually not that scary. So if you wanted to, and it's a haunted Haveli, it's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
I would watch it, and I think you would probably enjoy it more. I think that people who watch a lot of horror, such as myself, will
Sure.
be a little bit disappointed in Brahma Yogam because we've kind of seen this before, and it's not that
It's
unusual
like
and
we
great.
need that another category, and maybe for horror fans, there are lots of subcategories. And so this is
Yeah.
like spooky rather than scary.
Yes.
You know,
You could definitely handle Bramayugam. So if you want to go down the scary forest and the haunted Haveli, I would. There's even a scene in it that reminded me of Goonies.
nice.
I was like, wait, this makes me think of
Is
Goonies.
it a
Okay,
water
never mind.
slide? Is
Huh?
it a water slide?
No, it's not. There is not a water slide
Is
in
it
this.
an organ made of bones? Ooh,
No, but there are many
no
bones.
spoilers.
I think you should give this a shot. Watch it on a really nice sunny day at like 2 in the afternoon with your cat on your lap,
Okay.
being cozy. I think that would be the way to go. It's not that bad from like a horror standpoint. Yeah. What are some movies that make you think of blackness? Oh, before I just wanted to quote this real quick,
Yeah.
because I love this bit. In a letter dated June 28th, 1783, Samuel Johnson talked of his depression as a black dog. I don't know if that's where the expression comes from, but he said, when I rise, my breakfast is solitary. The black dog waits to share it. From breakfast to dinner, he continues barking. Night comes at last, and some hours of restlessness and confusion bring me again to a day of solitude. What shall exclude the black dog from a habitation like this? And then a century later, John Ruskin's horrifying description of the onset of a psychotic break began with a large black cat sprang forth from behind the mirror. And then Winston Churchill had also written about a German doctor who had cured his friend's depression. And he wrote, I think this man might be useful to me if my black dog returns. He seems quite away from me now. It is such a relief. All the colors come back into the picture, brightest of all your dear face. So again, like, the black dog is a metaphor for like despair. um it always makes me think of the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Or I was thinking about that too. Yeah.
Yeah, or like Heathcliff on the Moors in Wuthering Heights.
I hate Heathcliff so much.
I know. Heathcliff and Devdas are actually soul brothers.
Very similar.
There should be a bromance. Maybe we'll make it with a couch change where Heathcliff and Devdas go through like a portal of some kind and they became the best of friends.
they wouldn't have missed each other by too terribly long. So I feel like
Yeah, I
there's
think they could be friends.
one the last time I reread Wuthering Heights, which was quite a while ago, but I was still, full on an adult and everything. And if I recall correctly, it talks about that the dad found Heathcliff in Liverpool at the docks, right? Or near the
Yeah,
docks or
I
something.
think so.
And he's described as being like dark and swarthy and whatever else.
For the
Like, I think now that I understand more about what was happening when in British imperialism and stuff, I think it's very plausible that Heathcliff is of South Asian extraction of some kind and
yeah,
ended up in the empire's biggest port, right? Like,
yeah.
or he's
Wasn't
from the Caribbean, or he's from not England for sure.
Yeah.
It seems.
Isn't there a Wuthering Heights adaptation? It may be a play rather than a movie,
Ah,
where they actually had an African American, or like they had a black actor play him, I believe.
I can believe it.
So yeah, I don't know.
I feel
But
like
what are some movies that make you think of the color black? Because Bimal Roy's Devdas definitely struck me as that.
yeah. I You know, I had a hard time with this one actually. So there are obviously quite a lot of song sequences that have black backdrops, not just because it's a nightclub, although sometimes because it's a nightclub or something. So like, isn't the background of part of Oh Hasina Zulfanwali, isn't it black behind their
Yeah,
parts and things like that? So I was kind of thinking about some of those. I you had mentioned at one point, yeah, also people who remind us of black. And for me, it's Shahrukh. He is the number one wearer of black for me. And I cannot exactly tell you why. I mean, obviously he wears black, like it's a thing that's out there for people to wear, but um it's not, I mean, it is in Suraj Hua Madam, right? He does wear black in that for a little bit, but that's not where I'm getting it from. That's not even the dominant color in that film. So I don't know why, but he to me is the actor I think of for black.
I love his black outfit in K3G in that song Banno Ki Saheli,
Hmm.
where he wears because Kajal makes a comment about how she doesn't really particularly care for his outfits, and she would rather that he wear like a black patani suit, and that's what he
Uh,
shows up in the like, and he's like, look, I wore what you wanted me to.
oh,
Oh, interesting, because I was thinking about who makes me think of the color black, and for me, it's Tabu,
interesting.
because I love Tabu, and I feel like no one plays the femme fatale like Tabu does.
Sure.
So I'm thinking Makbul, where she wears a lot of black. I'm thinking Haider. I'm thinking Andhadhun, even, where if you want to cast someone as a femme fatale, you're choosing Tabu. She
Yeah.
also looks phenomenal in black. She looks, because she's very like smoky and mysterious and sultry, and she doesn't have that transparency that say a Juhi Chawla does, right? Like it's kind of like Tabu saying a thing, but do you believe the thing that she's saying? Maybe you do. I don't know. She kind of like keeps you guessing a little bit, which I think is part of her charm, sort of the
Yeah.
mystery of her.
Interesting.
Even then, Tabu's being super lighthearted. I'm always like, what are you up to? What's going on in that
I don't believe you.
noggin? Yeah. So I associate Tabu with that color. Also, I watched Dune, the first one, and I watched Dune 2, and Dune Prophecy is coming, and she plays Sister Francesca in it, and she's wearing that black outfit that the Bene Gesserit wear, with the, I don't know how to describe it, like a little hat sort of a thing with like a veil on top of it, and she looks stunning.
Yeah, I'm just Googling some pictures. Yeah, that's an amazing.
And she has like coal in her eyes. I mean, if I watch Dune Prophecy, it's 100% going to be because of Tabu.
Now, as a person who's a fashion professional, do you feel all people look good in black, at least to a baseline? Because I feel like if you're watching this on YouTube, I mean, granted, computer screens and whatever, black, I feel like washes me the heck out. Like I'm a pale person and I think I skew a little warm tones. Like black is not my color to me.
I disagree. I just disagree with anyone who says that all colors, like to me, it's not possible for all
Right.
colors to look good on. And black is also a color, or the absence thereof. So I don't agree with that. Yeah. I think also, to me, a lot of, there's two aspects, right, to what color looks good on a person. There's the actual color scheme, their own
Mhm.
palette, but
Mhm.
then there's also the personality, because unless you're just looking at a snapshot, unless you're just looking at a photo of
Yeah.
someone, you're seeing them with person. It's always a little bit confusing to me when I meet someone who's super bubbly and joyous and vivacious, and then I see them in black and I'm like, what happened to you? um It doesn't mean they shouldn't wear black. They
Right.
should, or that they don't look good in it. It just feels a little bit incongruent.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of like, I want to see you in yellow, or I want to see you in
The
orange.
comfort level is key too, right? Like people communicate without words whether they're comfortable with
Yes,
what they're wearing or not a lot. And I think when you were talking about black being slimming, like black is the classic don't look at me
yes,
color, so much so that obviously like theater staff wear it so they can move sets around without being seen and stuff. But like
yeah.
people who want not to be noticed tend to wear, or at least I don't know, at least where we live, I think dark colors to sort of
Hmm.
read.
There's also a safety aspect to it too. Like, for example, I walk everywhere, and especially when it gets dark at 4, the jacket I wear when I walk my dog in the evening, I wear this bright silver jacket that literally has, like, it's almost like a little bit reflective, because I want cars to be able to see me.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll be walking and I'll see someone and they're wearing like a black jacket and they're wearing like a black cap, and I'm like, do you want to get run over? Like, it's winter, it's 4 o'clock, it might
Are
behoove
you a
you to
cat
wear.
burglar?
Yeah, maybe they're just a cat burglar. I don't know, but like, wear something neon. I don't know. So black can go both ways.
Yeah.
Also, I was just thinking, like, I've seen Tabu in so much black all the time. Also, I can't think about Tabu without thinking of her long black hair, like Tabu and Simi Garewal. It's like the same hair. But have we seen Juhi in black? Does she wear black? I feel like all I ever see Juhi in is like bright colors.
Well, okay, so this is the only thing I can think of is didn't you find isn't there a song in Dar where she's wearing a black sweater but it's got patterns on it? And
Yeah,
you have the Betty Boop
the
sweater,
Betty Boop, but
but
it's
it's a
Betty
black
Roop.
background, but that's it. Like black is the background for the design. So
Yeah.
I mean she must somewhere, but I certainly am not picturing it.
I just don't see her as that, right? Like, whereas it's hard for me to imagine Tabu in bubblegum pink. She has worn it. I remember her hot pink sari from Vijay Path. But every time I say Tabu, I'm like, no, no, please put on something black. You look amazing in it. Um, and then for actors, I think of Guru Dutt
Sure.
more because of the moods, because of movies like Pyasa and his song Ye Mehlo Ye Tak To Ye Tajo Ki Dunya, Ye Dunya Agar Mil Bhi Jaye To Kya Hai. Like, even if you get the world, so what? Which is like a nihilist's anthem. Like, if you're not in a bad mood before you watch that song, you will be.
Ooh, Argus.
Yeah.
I think of, but it is harder to think of color film.
But Nargis also wore a lot of white
Yeah.
because of Raj Kapoor's whole like woman in white whatever thing that he had going on. Yeah, I think Tabu. I think Guru Dutt mostly when I think of black,
Mm.
and then yeah, that's it. Does your Mithun never wear black? I can't imagine him in black.
Yeah, he does here and there, but not a super ton, I don't think. They seem to put him in all sorts of bunkers and more exuberant, right, outfits.
Yes.
There's certainly movies where he's playing some kind of like army. I mean, there's a movie called Commando, for example, but like
Oh, right.
I think he occasionally has black on for like the mission of whatever the film, right? Like, and I think so. I don't. Okay, there's a movie I might
Is
just
his mission to disco dance into the enemies? Is that the
maybe.
way it goes? He's gonna do some hip thrusts and scare the enemy away.
He must wear like black satin somewhere, so it's still shiny, but it's
Right.
black. I bet he does.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking to myself now with I mean, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of screen grabs from the films I've watched. And so I was actually thinking about plugging that drive into my computer and seeing if I can search by color,
Oh,
search
yeah.
images by color. Because you were talking about Pitu has already chosen probably her purple movie. And
Yes.
I have only got a couple of notes for some of the color matches I want to do. And I was like, oh, what would I do for purple? I'm like, I wonder if I could just search purple
Yeah.
and then find things in my screen grab collection. So
Yeah. I think that would be fun. You could make a collage with like
right.
all of the black pictures and all of the purple or whatever. That would be really cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's so many options, but
I feel like there's more Hollywood films that I associate with the color black and like iconic black outfits.
Mm.
There's of course Audrey Hepburn in her little black dress in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Also Audrey Hepburn in Sabrina with that beautiful black dress. I mean, I think in Hollywood films, black is just much more fashionable compared to in Bollywood for obvious
Yeah,
reasons. Sophia Loren in black,
yeah. We're
she
generally
always looks
more
amazing.
scared of colors in the West, I think, than in India, right? So,
And then a movie that is very dark, literally visually dark from a lighting perspective, and has a lot of black for obvious reasons is Interview with the Vampire, which is also one of
well,
my favorite films.
sure.
There's so much black in it, and there's so many shots at night in like Louisiana or in France because it's vampires. So of course they're scurrying around in the dark and hiding and like, you know, grabbing unsuspecting people and like drawing their blood away. But like black is so integral to horror films, which is why I think it would be an amazing challenge. If I was a filmmaker, I would set out to make a horror film that is candy colored because I think that would be so cool.
Some of those Italian ones must be, right? The Gallo
Yeah.
and stuff, those must be candy colored.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't think about non-Indian films for this, but as you've been talking, someone leaps to mind, which is Cary Grant.
Ah,
Partly
okay.
he wears suits a lot, but also he has black hair, or at least that's how I
Mhm.
in the movies, right? And then dark eyes. So
Mhm.
I mean, I obviously he did make color films, but my favorites of his are the black and white. And like my favorite gif of all time is from his girl Friday, and it's him going, "Get out!" And he like does his hand. I sorry, my background is making he like does a twirling point, get out. It's like I use that gif whenever possible. Um, he's he definitely pings for black for me.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have any parting thoughts on the color?
I'm just interested to see if any of the other colors are going to bring to mind so many things as black. Maybe white will, but I suspect that,
It's going to be a challenge to do white, but not talk about snowy films again.
right? Maybe we should move white to the very end, and since
Yeah.
we did snow.
Bookend the actual colors with like black and white.
It is really interesting to talk about colors in a context that is not the cultural context I grew up in, right? Because so
Mhm.
India, white is a mourning color. In the US, white is absolutely not a mourning color, for example.
Right.
So, um, or like how red is a wedding color in India, but in
Mhm.
typically it is not, that kind of thing. So I think that'll be really interesting because
Yeah.
I remember having to go like whoop a few times when
Right.
in films because colors just don't mean the same thing. And I mean, why would they? I'm not saying they should. It's just
Yeah.
thing to think about. And when I work on exhibits in my museum, we do have to be very mindful about colors, and we always try to check like we think the artifacts would look great against this color, but culturally, is that appropriate?
Oh, yeah.
I will say we have been leaving our walls black for exhibits a lot lately because a lot of things look really nice
They
against,
pop.
yeah, like three-dimensional things are looking really nice against black. And also, um, pure black is obviously very hard to keep clean, but like a slightly softer black against a textured wall, like you can hide a lot of like bits of dust and scuff marks and stuff against that. We tried like white walls one exhibit, and that was a nightmare. It was dirty instantly, right?
Right.
Black was a little better. Gray is better still, but
Yeah.
black can be very, very useful when you want something to stand out against it, obviously.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how no one would ever call black cute, but I don't know if you like Studio Ghibli films like
Oh,
Hayao
sure.
Miyazaki's, and the soot sprites.
They're my favorite thing in all the Ghibli films that I've seen. I
They're
love
so
the little
cute.
sprites. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
adorable.
they're
And
so darling.
like I love what is the name? There's a cartoon on the internet of a black cat that and it often talks about it does like four panels and there's usually a rhyme in it, and the cat will
Okay,
be like, I'm so cute, but I'm going to bite you or whatever.
right? I've seen that.
And how people will refer to their black cat as Void.
Yes, Boyd. There's a whole subreddit for Boyds. And then
Cute.
even there's a black cat in Kiki's Delivery Service in the Miyazaki movie, and his name is Gigi. He's so cute. And then he falls in love with the white fluffy cat that lives next door
Oh,
with the big blue eyes. And then they have a litter of kittens.
oh,
And they have like
Taylor.
they have four kittens, and three of them are like white and fluffy, and then one of them is a Boyd.
I've been thinking about like the black swan, for example,
Oh
that
yeah.
sometimes, but also true of white, like that can be the very, very rare genetically
Mhm.
rare thing that just happens to happen sometimes, which,
like the white tigers.
and I'm assuming that black. So I read something really interesting once about black and white and red. In almost all languages, those are the first color words to develop in the history of a language. Red, obviously, blood, right?
Blood.
And black and white are, found in a lot of places in a lot of ways. But the words for colors appear in the same order in the development of most languages. So it's like black, white, and red, and then I think green, and then yellow, and then some don't even have a word for blue. And like
Mm,
ancient Greek, if I remember this correctly, the reason in Homer he talks about the wine dark open sea is because there isn't a word for blue.
mm,
So they're referring to, that like the darkness of a liquid or whatever. Um,
right.
anyway, I think that's really interesting. So black is a very human, like expressing blackness is something we need to do,
Yeah.
right? And I
And
think that's really fascinating.
there's so many deities that are black. I mean, the goddess Kali, her name literally means the black one.
Right.
And then there's all those Egyptian gods that are black, like Anubis. And then there's the black association with like the river Styx and with like with hell and Hades and stuff like that. It's interesting what you just said about color because there are some colors, for instance, that they don't really have a word in Hindi or in Marathi for
Sure.
them, for instance. So, for example, in Marathi, if we want to refer to the color brown, we say chocolatey, which means like chocolate. But there's
But
no
what did
actual.
people use before chocolate was known?
I don't know,
Oh,
but
that's
we literally say
interesting.
chocolatey for brown, whereas like
Wow.
obviously we say kala or for
Right.
black, right? And of course we have red, like there's lal, and then the color for pink in both Hindi and Marathi is actually gulabi, which literally
Okay.
means like a rose. But roses come in all sorts of colors, not just
I'm
in
in French,
pink.
right? Pink is rose. So,
Exactly. And
um,
then there's a shade that's actually called gajri, which is carrot orange.
oh,
So it's
wow.
not like orange, but it's like the
Yeah,
carrot
yellowy orange.
kind of a
Right,
color.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So it's
not
it's
like
very
terracotta orange, carrot.
right.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So there's so many words where it's like, okay, but what is this color actually? Or like the color in at least in Marathi for purple is vangi, which means eggplant colored.
And of course,
So there's so
yeah.
many of the colors, like you think about them, and then you're like, wait, this is actually the name of a vegetable or fruit or a food item, and you just,
Well,
you just
English,
use that.
if I understand correctly, English did not get a word for orange until orange came in from Arabic, and that's why a red robin is called that because that's the closest they had. They didn't have
Right.
a word for orange, which is interesting because I guess there aren't very many naturally orange things where you need a word. I don't know. It's all so
Yeah.
interesting. Black, I would assume, is also difficult to create without synthetic dyes. So like black fabric would have been
Hmm.
hard in ancient and
Yeah.
historical times, I would think. I don't actually know that, but I'm tempted to dig into it. So there's like that sort of earthy reds and certain blues that come from minerals or purples and browns, obviously, like everybody
Hmm.
knows, but black. So like the fact that you and I are sitting here in black tops that are very, very easy for us to get is
Yeah.
kind of a newer deal, I would think. And even
Yeah.
if you talk about like a black sheep, a black sheep is not like black, it's like dark gray,
Right.
right? It's not like black.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, like, if you look at makeup, like they found, coal
Mhm.
in Egyptian tombs, and then even in India, like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, they found like this because that's the easiest thing. It's literally soot.
Yeah.
It's literally they would take like the lamp soot and then they would use that and they would mix it with like I think oil or stuff like that, and then they would use that to make like the earliest makeup. I think was basically just
Black.
coal. Yeah.
And then probably some kind of red plant or whatever for cheeks and whatever else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
Interesting. Interesting. Black is, I mean, I dare you to like challenge you to look around a room and not find black things, right? Like
Right.
I don't think of myself, I don't wear a lot of black. I don't gravitate towards black for like furnishings or if I'm buying a new notebook, I don't buy black. I love black ink, but like I don't, but like there's a million black things just in the room right around me because it's just everywhere.
I'm so curious. What is your favorite color? I feel like I don't know.
Well,
I know it's not black.
it's very hard to choose. I'm okay with black. I just don't tend to wear it because I think it washes me out. I mm, I mean, for what purpose, right? So like there are a lot of
Just in general.
probably an orange these days, I would say, but like I love warm colors for the most part.
Mm.
I have like a barn red room, I have a leafy green kitchen. I have my room that I'm in right now, which I won't show you because it's messy, is like mango lassi colored.
Yeah.
So like I love the warms. I love pink, all sorts of pink,
Hmm.
maroons. I can't pick. Yours, I
Because
think.
if I had to guess, I would have guessed like a yellowy orange for you.
Yeah,
Not like a citron
right.
yellow, but more sort of like a lusty color.
Yeah. A
That's
lot
what I
of
kind of
that are
associate you with.
like
Yeah, something like
nice
that.
like a little turmericy sort of color, whatever. Yeah, all those kind of warm earthy tones are my favorites, I would say. But I
Oh,
mean, almost all colors can be impactful and beautiful to me if I see them and I love when you go into a natural history museum and they have the room full of gemstones,
oh
like
yes.
so stunning.
So
Like,
you will like this quote. I love this quote. It made me feel very good about us. So this book actually begins with the quote from John Ruskin. He wrote a book called The Stones of Venice in
mm,
1851. And the quote is, "The purest and most thoughtful minds are those which love color the most."
oh well, obviously, clearly.
So we are pure and thoughtful, Beth.
Yeah, if you were like a capsule wardrobe minimalist person with like black, white, gray, and like denim. I don't get that, but you do you.
Yeah. Or if you're a witch or vampire, that would be your uniform anyway. Or
Well,
a theater
like,
worker.
remember when we all started watching Project Runway and everybody learned that Michael Kors, the fashion designer, only wears all black all the time, and he's basically like, it's easy. I mean, I don't have to think about anything, and you're like, hmm.
Yeah. Isn't that
I
also like a
I
Steve
would
Jobs
do,
quote?
huh?
Where he is, I think that's also a Steve Jobs quote, right? Where he would
Probably.
just wear a black turtleneck because he was like, I don't have to think about it. I'm
Well,
like,
him,
thinking
I
about
don't.
what I'm going to wear gives me so much joy, though.
Him, I don't. That doesn't. Whatever. But like a fashion person, you'd think that there would be such an innate um, even if not a joy, an interest in color on the body that you would experiment or
Yeah.
something. Because also not all blacks are the same. So
Yeah.
like instantly everything like match. I don't know. I will not quibble with the great Michael Kors. I just think that's fascinating.
I've seen almost all of the Project Runway seasons because I love it so much. And every season, there's at least one designer who refuses to use any color other than black. And they always get reamed by the judges because they're like, you have to, because like otherwise you're not going to win this competition. Like you need to do something. And then they're like, fine. And then they'll use gray. And they're like, well, at least it's not black. It always makes me laugh. I'm like, when they're telling you to step out of your comfort zone, maybe make like a tangerine outfit, okay? And they're like,
Yeah,
I
like
did gray.
especially after season like 3 or 4, like you've seen this show, right? Like, did you prepare to be on it by looking at what has happened in the past? Like, there will be an unconventional materials challenge. You probably
Right.
will have to do menswear. You're going to have to do something with print or pattern, right?
You're
Um,
gonna have to clothe a plus size model. And ideally, you would do it with at least a little bit of dignity and grace instead of bitching the entire
and
time.
it might be one of your teammates' moms, but yeah, you're going to have to be someone who's not a size 0 and 6 feet tall. Like, yeah,
How?
they act surprised over like a thing that's happened in every single season. You're like, "Hmm."
Yeah,
Or maybe you're just playing for the camera and you want screen time for being an idiot, but
right. Okay, I think that wraps up this episode, and we will see you again. Goodbye from the thoughtful and wonderful filmy ladies. And then tell us what your favorite color is. Tell us what you think about black, and if you have watched the movies we talked about.
before we go, I want to just tell people that we had agreed we were going to wear the color we're talking about, and we both showed up in not black. And Pitu was like, "Oh my God, weren't we going to wear black?" So we both had to like run off and change clothes. That's how little we are drawn to black, is we didn't even
Yeah,
remember that we had said we were going to do it.
and the only
It's
thing I
wearing
could,
yellow, and you were wearing like a printed T-shirt. So
I
like,
was wearing a white shirt with Jaws on it,
yeah,
like the
so like
Jaws movie poster.
solid black is not our bag.
Yeah. And then I looked in my closet and the only black I had was basically like very fancy outfits, like for a night out. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I grabbed my black gunji and channeled Sanju Baba.
We're recording this the day before New Year's Eve, so we can just get our black going out outfits ready, I guess.
Not this. This is not a going out outfit, but okay.
My sweater's covered in cat hair, so not this either.
No.
Okay,
All
now,
right.
bye.
Thank you for watching. Bye.